There comes a moment when you look in the mirror and realize you're done. Done shrinking yourself to fit their expectations. Done seeking permission to feel worthy. Done apologizing for your existence. That moment, that's the beginning of power. That's the birth of unshakable self-respect. Because self-respect isn't given. It's built, step by step, day by day, with fire, with focus, with the kind of inner authority no one can steal. Let's build it together. Here are the 7 steps that will change everything. There comes a point in your life where everything feels off, not because the world has changed, but because something inside you is begging to be acknowledged. You wake up feeling disconnected, not from others, but from yourself. You laugh at jokes that don't feel funny. You agree to things that make your skin crawl. You wear masks so perfectly molded, you almost forget there's a face underneath. That's not just discomfort, that's the sound of your identity knocking, screaming, demanding to be let out. And here's the truth. Until you decide who you are fully, unapologetically, you will always be controlled by who others think you are. The world is quick to label you. It has names for everything: too loud, too quiet, too ambitious, too emotional, too much, not enough. If you don't take control of your narrative, society will write it for you, and it'll write small. Safe. Predictable. And it'll keep you there, locked in a box with a fake smile and a loud silence. Self-respect doesn't survive in a world where your identity is outsourced. You have to grab the pen, tear up the script, and write something new. Something real. Something true. Because identity isn't found, it's built. But building it takes courage. It means stepping away from everything that's been handed to you, the labels, the expectations, the lies, and asking the hard questions. What do I stand for? What do I believe when no one's watching? What am I no longer willing to accept? These questions aren't soft, they're steel. And the answers don't always come with clarity, they come with conflict. Because when you start to uncover your truth, everything that isn't aligned with it starts to fall away. Friends, jobs, comfort zones. And that's terrifying until it's liberating. You see, knowing who you are isn't about being stubborn. It's about being rooted. When you know your values, your purpose, your non-negotiables, you become immovable, not arrogant, not rigid, just clear. And that clarity makes people uncomfortable. Because they can't manipulate clarity. They can't gaslight confidence. They can't control someone who's finally decided to belong to themselves. And the moment you decide to be loyal to your truth instead of their approval, you become powerful in a way they can't touch. Most people never decide who they are. They inherit their identity like hand-me-down clothes, is ill-fitting, outdated, and not made for them. They follow the script, hoping it will lead to peace, and end up wondering why they feel so lost. You don't owe the world the version of you it's comfortable with. You owe it authenticity. You owe yourself freedom. And that freedom starts when you stop living for acceptance and start living in alignment with your values, your desires, your voice. That's where self-respect begins. Not in being perfect, but in being real. And realness doesn't require an audience. It requires honesty. Look in the mirror and say it out loud. Who am I? Who do I choose to be when no one's looking? Who do I become when I stop performing? You don't need external validation to claim your identity. You don't need a stage, a title, or 1,000 likes. You just need a decision. A deep, conscious, unshakable decision. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. And this is what I will no longer tolerate. That's not arrogance. That's self-respect. And it all begins the moment you decide you are done being a stranger to yourself. Self-respect thrives in clarity, not in how loud you are, not in how many people follow you, but in the invisible standards you carry for yourself. Every person who commands real respect didn't get there by accident. They drew a line in the sand, sometimes in silence, sometimes in fire, and said, "This is how I expect to be treated." Period. But here's the part most people miss: the standard you set for others is just a reflection of the one you set for yourself. If you keep tolerating disrespect, if you keep brushing off the way people talk down to you, interrupt you, overlook you, you're not just allowing it. You're teaching it. People respond to the energy you carry. If you show up like you're unsure, they'll test your boundaries. If you speak like you need approval, they'll give you judgment. But if you walk into the room with quiet certainty, with inner alignment, with a personal code you refuse to break suddenly, everything changes. The room adjusts to you. That's the power of standards. And setting them isn't about being confrontational, it's about being unavailable for anything that diminishes your worth. You don't have to yell. You don't have to explain. You just have to decide that certain behavior will never get a second chance with you. But it starts with how you treat yourself when no one's watching. Do you keep your word to yourself? Do you protect your time, your peace, your energy? Or do you give it all away, hoping someone will finally see your value? That's where self-respect either lives or dies in the private moments. You can't expect the world to honor boundaries you keep crossing on your own. Wanting better is not enough, you have to require it. And the moment you start doing that consistently, you'll see just how quickly the wrong people start disappearing and how right that actually feels. Raising your standards will make people uncomfortable, especially the ones who benefited from your silence. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're cold, difficult, hard to please. And you know what? Let them. You're not here to be easy for others, you're here to be real with yourself. Every no you say to disrespect is a yes to your growth. Every time you walk away from what no longer serves you, you're building a deeper foundation of self-respect. And the people who belong in your life won't fight your standards, they'll respect them because they respect you. Understand this, your energy is currency. And the more you value it, the more selective you become with where you spend it. You stop showing up for every battle. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop engaging with noise and start aligning with peace. That's not ego, that's elevation. You don't lower your standards to meet people. You rise and let them meet you there or not at all. And that mindset doesn't push the right people away. It filters them in. There's a quiet power in walking through the world knowing exactly what you stand for. You don't need to broadcast it. You don't need to defend it. You live it. And when you do, the world responds. Not always with applause, but with clarity. The wrong people fall away. The right ones rise to meet your energy. And most importantly, you look in the mirror and recognize someone you're proud of. That's what happens when you stop begging for respect and start demanding it through the example you set. Not through force, through standards. Relentless, non-negotiable, yours. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you chip away at the trust within you. And just like in any relationship, once trust is broken, respect begins to dissolve. Think about it: if someone kept lying to you, saying they'd show up and never did, would you respect them? Of course not. So why do we treat ourselves any differently? Self-respect isn't just built on big achievements. It's built in the quiet, often invisible moments where you say you'll do something and then you actually do it. Whether it's waking up early, drinking that water, finishing that project, or choosing not to call that toxic person back, those little commitments are bricks in the foundation of your personal power. It's easy to talk a big game. Easy to say, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to stop settling. But self-respect doesn't respond to talk. It responds to action. When you make promises to yourself and follow through, something shifts. You stand taller. You speak differently. You move through the world with authority. Because deep down you know you can count on you. That's where confidence is born. Not from external validation, not from fake positivity, but from a history of self-honoring decisions stacked on top of each other until your identity evolves. It's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. You will fall. You will mess up. You will say tomorrow when you should have said now. That doesn't mean start over. That means refocus, rallying, recommit. The people who carry unshakable self-respect aren't the ones who never break their word. They're the ones who don't stay broken. They catch themselves, they learn, and then they choose again, stronger. Self-respect isn't a final destination. It's a practice. A daily return to your highest standards, your clearest vision, and your deepest truths. Let's be honest, discipline doesn't feel good in the beginning. It feels like restriction, like pressure, like sacrifice. But over time, it becomes freedom. Because when you live in alignment with your own word, you no longer need permission, applause, or anyone else's timeline. You own your choices, you stand on them. And that kind of ownership creates momentum. You start to see yourself as someone who finishes what they start. Someone who rises even when no one is watching. Someone who does hard things not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. One of the most powerful things you can do for your self-respect is to keep even the smallest promises. I'll meditate for 5 minutes today. I'll speak up in that meeting. I'll stop scrolling and read instead. These are not minor. These are massive. Because every time you follow through, you cast a vote for the kind of person you believe you are. You reinforce the identity of someone who is disciplined, intentional, and deeply self-respecting. And over time, your mind starts to catch up with your behavior. You don't just hope you'll improve, you know you will. Because you've created a pattern of self-trust. And trust is everything. Once you rebuild that inner trust, no one can manipulate you with doubt. No one can shake your self-worth because you're not waiting for anyone else to tell you who you are. You've proven it to yourself. Again and again, you are your own evidence. That's where self-respect stops being an idea and starts becoming your default. It's in every choice, every boundary, every time you rise instead of retreat. So stop waiting for the right time. Stop breaking your word and calling it a rough patch. Keep the promise. Keep yourself. That's how respect becomes unshakable from the inside out. You don't need to explain yourself. Not to people who don't listen. Not to people who don't care. Not to people who already made up their minds about you. There is a quiet dignity in walking away from the need to be understood. Self-respect begins the moment you realize your worth isn't up for debate. You don't need to justify your decisions, your boundaries, your evolution. The people who truly value you won't demand explanations for your growth, they'll celebrate it. And those who don't, they were never for you to begin with. Every time you defend your truth to someone who's determined to clearly dilute it. And truth doesn't need to be diluted. It needs to be owned. We're trained to over-explain, conditioned to soften our no, to add a smile after our truth, to make others comfortable at the expense of our own clarity. But there comes a time when you stop dressing up your boundaries in politeness and start delivering them with certainty. Not cruelty, clarity. You're not cold for setting limits. You're not difficult for requiring respect. You're not rude for choosing your peace. You're simply awake, aware, and done performing. When you stop explaining yourself, you begin reclaiming yourself. And that reclamation is powerful because it means your self-worth is no longer dependent on someone else's understanding. Some people will never hear you no matter how carefully you speak. They're not listening for truth. They're listening for control. And when you stop giving them that, they'll call you unreasonable. That noise has nothing to do with your truth. Your life is not a courtroom. You are not on trial. You don't owe a defense for every choice that leads you closer to your peace. Let your actions speak. Let your boundaries hold. Let your growth be louder than your explanations ever could be. Because when you finally stop explaining yourself, you begin standing in your worth. And that's when self-respect becomes not just something you practice, but something you embody. Every day, every decision, every breath. Silence is not weakness. In fact, silence is intentional. Grounded silence is one of the loudest expressions of self-respect. We live in a world that pressures you to react to everything, to clap back, to explain, to respond immediately, to engage with noise just to prove you're still relevant. But maturity, real emotional mastery, comes when you no longer feel the need to entertain every opinion, argument, or attack. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every battle is yours to fight. And knowing the difference is what separates those who are consumed by chaos from those who are led by clarity. When you start choosing silence over reaction, you begin reclaiming your power. Because power isn't loud, it's presence. And presence is built in restraint. It's easy to scream back. It's easy to get pulled into emotional traps disguised as conversations. What's hard is sitting with your feelings, owning them, and realizing that no one else needs to feel your fire to make it real. You don't have to prove your passion. You don't have to prove your point. Some things are better felt than explained, and your self-respect grows every time you choose peace over proving. There is profound strength in being unbothered, not numb, but centered. When someone tries to bait you stew and chew, and you choose not to give them what they want. That's power. When someone misses you, misquotes you, misunderstands you, and you don't run to correct them. That's confidence. Silence is not submission. It is sovereignty. You stop handing out access to your emotions like free samples and start guarding them like sacred treasures. Because they are. You've worked too hard to build this version of yourself just to let someone's ignorance shake it. When you protect your peace, you send a message without speaking a word. You say, I no longer live at the mercy of external chaos. And the people who once fed on your reactions will starve in your stillness. Not because you don't care, but because you've outgrown the need to convince. Your healing is not performative. It's not designed to make others comfortable. It's quiet. It's deep. It's private. And in that privacy, self-respect grows, it matures. It settles into your bones until it becomes second nature to protect your energy at all costs. Choosing not to respond isn't always easy. Sometimes your ego will scream for retaliation. Sometimes your old patterns will beg you to make a scene, to make it known that you were wronged, to demand justice. But justice doesn't always come in public form. Sometimes the best justice is your silence and your success. Sometimes the real win is walking away with your dignity untouched. Let them wonder how they lost access to you. Let them sit in the confusion of your absence. You don't know explanations. You owe yourself inner peace. The ultimate display of self-respect is emotional discipline. When you stop reacting to everything, you start responding to what matters. You begin to distinguish between what is urgent and what is important. You start listening more to your instincts, your boundaries, your higher self. You learn to pause, to breathe, and to choose your words like a sculptor chooses a chisel deliberately. And sometimes the most powerful word you can choose is none at all. That's silence. That's your strength. That's stillness. That's your sanctuary. That's self-control. That's where self-respect becomes unshakable. Not because the world stopped testing you, but because you stopped handing it your power. There is something sacred about keeping your circle clean. Not perfect clean, energetically clean, spiritually clean. People often talk about self-love and self-worth, but too many forget that your environment, especially the people around you, either build that self-respect or slowly corrode it. Who you surround yourself with is not just about loyalty or history, it's about alignment. Do the people in your life respect your boundaries? Do they speak to you with love even when they disagree? Do they hold space for your growth, or do they shrink in the face of it? You cannot grow fully into your power while staying surrounded by people who are committed to the old version of you. Energy is contagious. If you are constantly in the company of people who complain, gossip, belittle others, or dismiss your vision, don't be surprised when your own energy starts to sink. This isn't about judging others harshly, it's about protecting the atmosphere where your self-respect breathes. If someone constantly makes you question your worth, your choices, your voice, that is not connection, that is corrosion. And the longer you tolerate it, the more normalized it becomes. You start lowering your standards just to keep the peace. But real peace does come from avoiding conflict. It comes from choosing truth even when it's inconvenient. Sometimes the most powerful decision you can make for your self-respect is walking away from relationships that no longer align with your values. Not out of hate, but out of honor. Honor for your growth. Honor for your future. And yes, it will hurt. Letting go of people who once part of your identity will feel like losing a limb. But staying in spaces that constantly dismiss your truth is far more damaging. It chips away at you in ways that silence you, dims you, and eventually makes you forget how bright you used to burn. That's the real loss, not the person, but the version of you you bury just to keep them around. Boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They are how you decide who gets access to your life and how much of you they get. And if someone reacts negatively to your boundaries, that's not your cue to soften them, it's your confirmation that those boundaries are necessary. The people who respect you won't be threatened by your growth, they'll support it. They'll adjust. They'll rise. But the ones who benefited from your self-abandonment will resist. And when they do, you'll be faced with a choice. Do you shrink again? Or do you rise anyway? Your self-respect cannot thrive in toxic soil. It needs support, challenge, accountability, and truth, but never manipulation, guilt, or control. The people in your life should feel like sunlight, not storms. They should push you to be better, not pressure you to stay the same. And sometimes, loving yourself deeply means outgrowing others gently. You don't need to make it dramatic. You don't need to explain yourself. You just need to elevate. And as you rise, the right people will rise with you or make room for those who will. You are not responsible for carrying dead weight in the name of loyalty. Loyalty to others should never cost you loyalty to yourself. If someone consistently disrespects your time, your space, your evolution, they are not part of your healing, they are part of your delay. And self-respect looks like choosing people who choose you back. Fully. Authentically. Without resentment. Without competition. With love. With grace. Because when your circle reflects your standards, your life reflects your worth. And that's when self-respect stops being a battle and starts being your baseline. You just need to elevate. And as you rise, the right people will rise with you or make room for those who will. So if you've been waiting for a sign to rise, to finally draw the line, to choose yourself, to walk in your truth without apology, this is it. You don't need permission. You don't need validation. You need decision. Decide that you are no longer available for anything that dishonors your worth. Decide that your self-respect is non-negotiable. Because when you move like you know who you are, the world responds differently. Doors open. Standards rise. The noise fades, and what's left is a life built on power, clarity, and truth. You won't just feel different, you'll be different. Unshakable. Unstoppable. Unapologetically you.